What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, please jump on over to DJLittleRock.com. Come on by. The water's fine. I don't know. If it's a pool party, maybe the water's fine. Check availability and get a free price quote, and maybe you can have me at your next event. If you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Use the hashtag What Makes You Famous and find it everywhere. What makes you smarter? Well, let's find out. Let's do it together right here on the program.
Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, U.S. agencies reportedly raise coronavirus death rate forecast. Several Trump administration agencies are forecasting that the daily U.S. death toll from the COVID-19 coronavirus will rise to 3,000 by June 1st. That's nearly double the current toll of 1,750 deaths per day. The prediction is based on Center for Disease Control and Prevention modeling, which previously underestimated actual deaths. The CDC also predicts that the number of new confirmed cases reported daily could rise from the current 25,000 to 200,000 or more by the end of May. The report comes as dozens of states ease stay-at-home orders, allowing many non-essential businesses to reopen for the first time in more than a month. President Trump, who has pushed to start reopening much of the economy, said Sunday the number of U.S. deaths from the pandemic could reach 100,000. That figure would quickly be surpassed if the projections for June deaths hold true. This is according to CNBC and the New York Times. Number 2, Venezuela says it captured 2 U.S. mercenaries in failed incursion. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said Monday that his forces had captured 2 American, quote, mercenaries, end quote, involved in a failed incursion launched Sunday in an attempt to topple his government. Maduro said the 2 U.S. citizens, identified as former Special Forces soldiers Aaron Berry and Luke Denman, worked for a Florida-based security company called Silver Corp USA, whose owner, retired Green Beret Jordan Goudreau, posted on social media Sunday claiming to have organized an invasion into the oil-producing South American nation. Maduro said a total of 13, quote, terrorists, end quote, had been arrested. U.S. officials and the opposition, headed by Juan Guaido, have denied any connection to the alleged plot. This is according to Reuters and the New York Times. Number 3, Italy eases restrictions after nearly 2-month lockdown. Italy on Monday began partially lifting lockdown restrictions that were imposed on March 9th to contain the coronavirus outbreak. About 4.5 million Italians were able to return to work as the country allowed construction, wholesale, and some manufacturing companies to resume operations. Restaurants reopened, but only to provide takeout service, and parks reopened with social distancing rules in place. Italy was the hardest hit country in Europe. It reported nearly 29,000 COVID-19 deaths, although the real number is believed to be higher. Spain also started the first phase of its plan to lift restrictions, with small businesses reopening for counter service and restaurants permitted to offer delivery. This is according to NPR and Axios. Number 4, Supreme Court hears oral arguments by teleconference. The Supreme Court on Monday began hearing oral arguments over the phone for the first time in history due to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. In another first, the historic teleconference was made available to the public via live stream. The first of 10 cases the court began hearing was a trademark dispute involving Booking.com. The Patent and Trademark Office contends that the internet travel company can't trademark a generic term like, quote, booking, end quote, simply by adding .com. The rest of the arguments are scheduled to continue until May 13th. Among the other cases are 3 concerning subpoenas for President Trump's financial records. The process went smoothly on Monday. This is according to the Washington Post and NPR. Number 5, Senate official declines Biden request for release of complaint. Secretary of the Senate, Julie Adams, on Monday turned down a request from former Vice President Joe Biden for the release of former aide Tara Reade's complaint against Biden in 1993. Biden, now the Democratic Party's presumptive presidential nominee, was a senator at the time. Biden on Friday addressed Reade's allegation that he sexually assaulted her in a Capitol Hill hallway, saying it never happened. He also wrote Adams asking her to, quote, take or direct whatever steps are necessary to establish the location of the records of this office, and once they have been located, to direct a search for the alleged complaint and to make public the results of this search, end quote. But Adams said her office has, quote, no discretion to disclose, end quote, any such complaint, quote, based on the law's strict confidentiality requirements, end quote. This is according to The Hill and Politico. Number 6, Newsom announces California to let stores reopen for pickup. California Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, announced Monday that the state would let some retail stores open as early as Friday, subject to modifications to limit the risk of spreading the coronavirus. The state will lift its initial stay-at-home order and issue new guidelines, allowing stores selling books, music, toys, flowers, sporting goods, and other goods to start offering sales for pickup. He has said details of the policy would be unveiled shortly. Quote, we are entering into the next phase this week, end quote, Newsom said at his Monday news conference. Quote, this is a very positive sign, and it's happened only for one reason. The data says it can happen, end quote. This is according to the Los Angeles Times. Number 7, Colson Whitehead wins second Pulitzer Prize for fiction. Author Colson Whitehead won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction on Monday for The Nickel Boys, a novel about young black men at an abusive reform school. In 2017, Whitehead won in the same category for Underground Railroad and is now the 4th writer to twice win the Pulitzer for fiction, after Booth Tarkington, William Faulkner, and John Updike. The Pulitzer Committee called The Nickel Boys a, quote, spare and devastating exploration of abuse at a reform school in Jim Crow-era Florida that is ultimately a powerful tale of human perseverance, dignity, and redemption, end quote. The prizes were announced from the living room of Pulitzer Administrator Dana Kennedy after being postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic. This is according to BBC News. Number 8, report. U.S. Allied intelligence doubt coronavirus spread from Wuhan lab. Intelligence shared between the U.S., United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand indicates that it's, quote, highly unlikely, end quote, the coronavirus originated in a lab in Wuhan, China. 2 officials told CNN on Monday, citing an intelligence assessment. The countries make up the Five Eyes Alliance, and 2 officials said the nations are united around the assessment. One Western diplomat told CNN the intelligence points to the coronavirus outbreak coming from a market in Wuhan, and it's, quote, highly unlikely it was naturally occurring and that the human infection was from natural human and animal interaction, end quote. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has claimed there is, quote, enormous evidence, end quote, the coronavirus spread as a result of a lab accident. This is according to CNN. Number 9, Amazon executive resigns over protester firings. And Amazon Vice President Tim Bray said Monday he had quit his job at the online retail giant, quote, in dismay, end quote, over the company's decision to fire some workers who protested workplace safety during the coronavirus pandemic. Bray, an engineer, was vice president of the company's cloud computing arm, and before that of Amazon Web Services. Bray criticized the firing of Staten Island warehouse protest leader Christian Smalls and Marin Costa and Emily Cunningham, who circulated a petition in March calling on Amazon to expand sick leave. Smalls' case is being investigated by New York's Attorney General. Bray said the fired workers were whistleblowers and that their dismissal was, quote, evidence of a vein of toxicity running through the company culture, end quote. This is according to the New York Times. Number 10, Don Shula, winningest coach in NFL history, dies at 90. Former Miami Dolphins coach Don Shula, who led the team to the NFL's only undefeated season, died peacefully at his home on Monday. He was 90. Shula won a league record 347 games as head coach of the Baltimore Colts and the Dolphins. The unprecedented and unmatched 17-0 season in 1972 culminated with a 14-7 Super Bowl victory over the Washington Redskins. The team won a second straight championship the following year, beating the Minnesota Vikings 24-7 in Super Bowl VIII. That was the team's third straight Super Bowl appearance following a loss to the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl VI. Shula also led the team to two other championship games, both losses later in his more than 2 decades in Miami. He also led the Colts to an appearance in Super Bowl III, which they lost to the New York Jets. This is according to ESPN and CNN. You know I'm from Miami, and I feel that loss a lot. That's 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. Happy Cinco de Mayo. It's Taco Tuesday, Cinco de Mayo. I just thought of that. I'm sure other people have been thinking that. Drop me some comments if you like the show or don't like the show. Also, if you want to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. That's it for me. It's Keys Dan, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here. Peace. I'm out of here.
If you like what you hear, I encourage you to follow What Makes You Smarter on social media. Find it on Facebook at What Makes You Smarter, Instagram at What Makes You Smarter, Twitter at SmarterWhat, and YouTube. Username Keys Dan. Leave What Makes You Smarter podcast a review and subscribe. Listen to What Makes You Smarter podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Addict. My personal favorite, learn with me on my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. And if you'd like to tell your story, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Call 501-470-6386 and leave a message to set up a time for What Makes You Famous. Support What Makes You Smarter podcast using the PayPal, paypal.me/KeysDan. Email info@radiowhat.com. What Makes You Smarter is a production of Keys Dan Enterprises Incorporated at keysdan.com. Thank you for listening.